Welcome to the meeting of the Gloucester Conservation Commission for Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. The time is just after 5:30. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allow, the Conservation Commission will continue to hold meetings remotely. Adequate alternative access to the meetings is provided through the Zoom links. As always, continue to check the updated agendas and the city calendar for updated meeting information. And we'll start with a roll call of commissioners. Member Charpentier.
Here.
Member Cook.
Here.
Member Gredwell.
Here.
Member Sargent.
Here.
Member Materi.
Here.
Member Gullah.
Here.
And Member Jackson.
Here.
All right, full commission.
Excellent. Thank you, Chuck. First up for the meeting would be our administrative briefing period. Is there anything else you would like to discuss, Chuck?
I did want to mention we're going to be doing some rearranging at the city annex. So for the meeting for the submittals for the second meeting in May, which will be May 1st is the submittal date. If folks can plan to have paper submittals in prior to that, or at least make sure you have your electronic submittals in May 1st, we can figure out the paper copies after that. But if you have them in early, that'd be great, because we may not actually be there in the building on May 1st. So then we did have some additional continued items. So I'll just mention some of those so folks aren't sitting on the meeting waiting. Let's see, the first three were previously continued to May, a couple meetings in May. Then some things that were not on the agenda is NOI 0282969 for 5 Samoset Road. That has requested to continue to May 1st, 2024. NOI 0282976 for 171 and 281 Rear Magnolia. They requested to continue to May 1st. And NOI 0282950 for 160, 158 Rear and 154A Essex Avenue. They've also requested continue to May 1st, 2024. And that is it for continuations.
Okay. Next up is the public comment period of the meeting. This is the period where the public is welcome to speak on conservation issues that are not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to speak, you may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We have 16 attendees. I'm seeing one hand up, James Legakos. I believe he might be calling in for a particular project, but we'll allow him to speak.
Yes. I believe you have the letters that I had brought over to you guys, and we were hoping to.
Just for the record, sir.
31 Winthrop Ave.
31 Winthrop.
Okay. And what's your question?
This is for a particular project that's on the agenda later, so you should probably wait to have his comment.
Okay. So
When would that be? Do you know?
It could be. We don't
yeah.
matter how quick the meeting goes.
yes, depending how quick
all right.
the meeting goes.
So we'll just kind of
Stand by.
stand by.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Chuck, anyone else?
There are no other hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Next up would be and I'll start this is 20282968 22 Raven Lane has been continued to 5/15/2024. And notice of intent 139 Wingershik. Ernest Herman, notice of intent 0282981 139 Wingershik. That's also previously been continued. So moving along, we go to notice of intent.
Rob, did we do minutes? Did we do minutes?
Not yet.
Jumped ahead. Let's do minutes. We got a full commission, so we can do that. Someone want to put forth a motion to approve the April 3rd, 2024 minutes?
Commissioner Jackson moves to approve the Conservation Commission meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2024 as amended.
Carpentier seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell. Member Gradwell? Muted.
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Materi,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Abstain?
Okay, so again, just to reiterate, we have a notice of 22 Raven Lane, notice of 2968 has been previously continued to May 15th. And we have notice of intent 0282981, 139 Wingershik. That has also been continued to 5/1/2024. Next up is notice of intent 0282984, 932 Washington Street. Kim Jawalski Bushki of University of Massachusetts Amherst installation of a, well, I don't have to go through all that, I guess now, has also previously continued to May 1st, 2024. Next up is notice of intent 0282969, 5 Somerset Road. Has that's also been continued, correct?
They're requesting to continue to May 1st.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282969 at 5 Samoset Road to the Conservation Commission meeting of May 1st, 2024.
Carpentier seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Materi,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Next up would be notice of intent 0282983, 12 Woodward Avenue. Ina Razkowski for construction of a single-family home, driveway, and stone resources in stone patio in riverfront area, land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to coastal resource areas. William Manuel of Wetlands and Land Management, Inc. represent.
Hi, good evening. Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management. I'll get right to it. The focus of the previous hearing was largely on the riverfront redevelopment standards. I just want to remind the commission that the applicant has taken some significant steps towards having the most sustainable and resilient project in light of more frequent and higher storm surges. The applicant's already obtained a front yard setback variance to be able to pull the house farther, closer to the road, farther from the river. They've maintained a 20+ foot wide swath of native vegetation along the marsh line. That's on the upland side of the marsh line. The project has no maintained lawn. It has over 2,400 square feet of new native plantings. It has specifications for invasive species removal. Stormwater management is included on this project for a single family lot where none is required. And all hardscape is pervious, and we have a 2-to-1 ratio of tree replacement. I have a lengthy narrative that I've included with the original submittal. I updated it. I'm going to share my screen quickly and just show you the revised Concom plan. Chuck had asked that we include the pervious pathway here, the pine needle path, and also this length of walkway to the impact table. So we have done that, and that's shown over here on the right side of the plan. I walk you through in my narrative how the project complies with each of the 5 redevelopment criteria. I walk you through step by step how the mitigation numbers were achieved. We are allowed to take 1-to-1 mitigation for this section right here, which is in the old house footprint, but we are restoring that. And then the rest of the project gets 2-to-1 ratio mitigation. Because this project didn't have expansive lawn and we're striving to keep as much as the project undisturbed, we have to rely on a section of the regulations, subsection G, that says requires 2-to-1 mitigation or equivalent level of environmental protection where square footage is not a relevant calculation. I've outlined this again in the chart. I've updated these charts on the right-hand side of the plan. The commission didn't like where I tried to quantify a numerical value on my previous iteration. I'm just pointing out to you areas of mitigation over 2,200 square feet of invasive species removal is an equivalent level of environmental protection where square footage is not a relevant measure. Same with stormwater management. We have the rain garden here to pick up the rooftop, and then we also have infiltration here to pick up the driveway. We also have no maintained lawn, and as I said, all the hardscape is pervious, and we have moved the project away from the river as far as possible. So I believe we have adequately quantified the mitigation required for a riverfront redevelopment project. I want to thank Peter for coming out and Chuck for coming out in the driving rain, and also thank anybody else who took the time to drive by the site. Thank you.
Thank you. So first up would be is to see if anybody in the public wishes to speak for or against the project at 12 Woodward Avenue. If so, you may do so by hitting the raise your hand button in the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 22 attendees and there's one hand up, Mark St. Pierre.
Hi
Hello.
there. Hi there. Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, name and address of the record, sir.
Yes, I'm Mark St. Pierre. I'm a direct abutter at 8 Woodward Ave. So thanks for listening and considering what's to be said. I wanted to address just a couple things that Mr. Manuel said, that, the house was being pulled further, to the road away from the river. But if you really look at the original footprint, the southern part of the house is still very much parallel to the original footprint, just moved to south. And now the house is completely expanded up to the road. So, he talks about there being little lawn because there's little land left to plant lawn. So first, let me say there's a direct abutter. There was a prior proposal and that's gone. And, we wouldn't even have a meeting like this if this were the question that was something in proportion. But I do have a question regarding regarding this now 3,800 square foot situation. And I imagine that if I were to purchase this particular lot, I would have consulted somebody at conservation prior to my purchase. And I was wondering, was this done by Ms. Red Zahovsky or her lawyer, Meredith Fine, to understand what the parameters were on this? Does anybody at conservation know if they looked into this?
No, we don't get into that level of detail in terms of who.
Oh, okay. Because to me, it would be the past proposal. They must have been aware that this was a little bit outside conservation requirements, but chose to disregard these. But anyway, he's worked with the invasive species into an ambiguous ratio. And there's still some kind of question about there's some ambiguous aspect of how these are all going to work. It's kind of a shell game and the mitigation to degradation ratios. I mean, he's telling you to make this decision on stormwater and this or that. These things are this. But the overall thing is that clearly this project is much too large for the lot. And I'm concerned about the natural resources for bird and fish, that they'll be greatly diminished. And also a very real practical application is, he said earlier that this is going to be much undisturbed, but you went to the site. And if you saw at the site, there was an enormous boulder. Now that boulder measures like 5 feet 5 tall, 15 feet long and 8 feet wide. And that's what we see above the ground. And that anchors the southern portion of the lot. Well, the proposed structure removes that boulder. The house has to go over it somehow, and I don't see in any plan how that's going to be dealt with. So I don't understand how that's not a huge disturbance, this type of excavation. And also, this is, I have some anxiety about this boulder and the excavation because it's 29 feet away from my 1920s foundation. And I'm very fearful of the potential damage there. And again, so this blasting going or whatever, I fear this huge excavation is far from not disturbing the land here. And I know that this is unlikely, but my request is that conservation maybe consider reducing the structure, and that something more reasonable could be met with more support and harmony by the neighbors. And I also, with the ratios, I really want you to consider if there's any precedent being set here, because those things will continue to reverberate in future development, not just in this particular project. So I just want to say thanks. These are some very big considerations, and just the sheer density of how big this building will be, having moved from the front of the original footprint all the way up to the street, nearly 40 feet wide. Looks like a duplex, not that that's relevant, but this is an enormous structure at 3,800 square feet for a very small lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have another hand up, Laura Trudell.
Laura, can you hear me?
I'm unmuted.
No, I can hear you. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I'm 42 Woodward Ave in Gloucester. I have lived on the street for 15 years, and I'd like to speak to the Japanese knotweed problem. This street is ubiquitous for Japanese knotweed. And in our lot, we have had Japanese knotweed for 15 years, and I've tried to eradicate it by just cutting and maintaining it from by trying to not use herbicides, because we are actually on a clam bed. So I am protecting the clamming area and maintaining that I cannot get rid of Japanese knotweed because it is continuous throughout this neighborhood. So as a mitigation perk, shall we say, this is not I think, a legitimate thing that can be eradicated from that area. And I agree with Mr. St. Pierre that the house does not fit in with the neighborhood as it is larger than most of the structures on this neighborhood, except for 52 Woodward, which was just recently built, and also on a too small land for that size property. So I will turn you over to Lynn Jackson. We're seeing on the same
Zoom.
Yes.
So I'm Lynn Jackson, also live at 42 Woodward Ave. I am opposed to this project as currently described. My biggest opposition, as has been said by others, is that it's a proposal to build a huge house on a minuscule lot that directly abuts the river, much like the building that just went up at 52 Woodward. Again, a huge house squeezed onto a tiny, tiny lot, which completely changes the neighborhood that we live in and that we love. And Mark has pointed out, a lot of the specific issues related to this, which I agree with and will not repeat. But I did want to voice my opposition to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Chuck?
There are no other hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, close the public comment period. Next up would be commissioner roll call comments.
Member Charpentier.
Yeah, I'd like Bill to go over the the pervious and non-pervious. And the other thing that I'm concerned about as well is counting that knotweed removal or invasives removal. Like to know how that will be done, and also concerned on whether there will be blasting in this area.
Member Cook?
Yeah, first to address one of the concerns that the neighbors have is the size of this project. It's something that we encounter continuously now. But that has to be addressed through the city's zoning board of appeals. The size of the structures were all through the zoning board of appeals. I'm quite sure the neighbors were all made aware of it. That's the time that the size of the structures need to be addressed. Once they approve it, it's not up to the Conservation Commission to try to shrink the size of the project. We just have to live with it, suck it up, and try to address the resource area as best we can. But it has to be taken up with the zoning board of appeals. Other than that, I have, same thing Linda just said, my biggest concern is including all of the invasive removal and stuff like that as part of the mitigation.
Member Gredwell?
The amount of fill that's going to be required, they're raising the average from 29 feet to 35 feet around the surrounding. It's really going to require a lot of fill in there. And of the 12 trees that are being replaced, how many are trees and how many are bushes? Because I think that some of what he's replacing is bushes and not trees. And it's very concise on the riverfront that it be 2-to-1 on trees.
Member Sargent?
Yes, I'd like a prohibition on the use of herbicides and the removal of invasive plants. And there should be a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings. All dewatering must be adequately treated before being discharged, and the mitigation numbers still don't seem to quite add up. Perhaps if the building footprint was smaller, there'd be more room for mitigation plantings. Thank you.
Member Materi?
I don't know if the invasive species areas, if that's being counted towards mitigation, I don't think I would endorse that, but otherwise I think that there's a sufficient amount of mitigation for the impacts that are, coming for the redevelopment criteria. So aside from that, I'm okay with that part of the project. For the invasive species program, I think I'd like to see, in conjunction or in tandem with removal of invasive species is some planting of a native species, with the idea that the native species would take over and kind of become established in that riverfront area. So some condition that would address that. I'd like to see that. But other than that, I don't have any other comments.
Member Bella?
Yeah, I would like a little bit more information on the chart as well, just if you could explain it to me in a little more detail. And similar to what Mr. Viteri said, the offsets for the invasives and how you're going to deal with that issue in terms of how are you going to maintain it, manage it, and for how long? If we could, like Peter said, if we can basically overlap old with new, but that's very hard to do with invasives. It's difficult. We've been dealing with it forever here. It's difficult to actually eradicate something, as we all know. So you're going to have to, I think, sway me at least a little bit more on how you're going to manage that part of the process. That's it.
Member Jackson?
Yes, and for the record, I did listen to the tape of the April 3rd meeting, which I was unable to be present. I'm a spreadsheet type of person, and there are so many numbers and so many discussions of mitigation, and it's not clear whether some have been counted twice for certain areas. what I would love to see is a breakdown by 1058-5A through H, each one of these, with whether the standard has been met, and if not, the square feet requiring restoration or mitigation. Another column saying the square feet of restoration or mitigation proposed. I would add a third column describing or indicating that that particular standard is outlined in red on the plan or is described in words. And I would also like a listing of the non-quantifiable areas of mitigation with a rationale as to why you feel they are advantageous. That's my piece.
Okay. That's everybody, Mr. Manuel. I don't know, I get the feeling we might have to do another continuation here, but if you want to take the floor and try and capture as much as you can from us, that'd be great.
Yeah, we're not very far off. I just want to share my screen and point out something. So, first of all, with some of the neighbor comments, to Mr. Pierre, I know you were concerned about blasting, and that was mentioned in the commission members' comment. I did go back and consult with the architect, and you described there was a large bedrock. You called it a boulder. I'm pretty sure it's just solid bedrock there. There are alternate means for rock removal, and the architect has committed that we will try alternate means first, but we will not rule out blasting entirely. There are alternate means such as rock hammering, which it's a little bit slower, but you can achieve rock removal by that. There's hydraulic splitting. There's use of, well, hydraulic splitting is really the second best alternative, where the rock is drilled and then physically split using hydraulic wedges. So we will certainly try alternate means first, and hopefully that is successful. We, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, that the rear of the home is actually above the grade of the land. So we know we're probably not going to have to get blasting through probably half of the site. We don't know what's under the ground on the front part of it. So we are pretty confident we need rock removal, but we will avoid blasting only as a last means if we just run into complete hard granite that we can't move. With respect to the house size, it's been overestimated by more than 100%. These are the numbers. This is on the landscape plan that's been submitted to you. The total footprint of the residence and the garage is 1,828 square feet. The ground floor, the basement floor, has a footprint of 1,252 square feet. The house is, I think, 2.5 stories, but the living part of the house is only 1,252 square feet. That's pretty small, and that's a pretty good use, economical use of footprint. It does have an attached garage, which is 576 square feet. The number 3,800 is wildly inflated. There's the numbers there, 1,828 square feet. The lot is not tiny. The lot is nearly 13,000 square feet. And I think we've done a great job in, pulling the house as far away from the river as possible. Quickly going down some of the other stuff here. I have a very detailed narrative. It's 12 pages long, and beginning on page 7, it walks you through all of how the impacts were calculated. I don't have an exact number of pervious versus non-pervious. I can get that to you. That's not a big deal. With respect to invasive species removal, the commission has welcomed invasive species removal on any number of projects in the past. I'm a little uncertain why it seems to be discounted on a project like this, when removal of invasives and replacement with native species has always been welcomed in front of the Gloucester Concom. The biggest part of it's not so much the invasive species removal. That is a good mitigation step, but it's this preservation of over 2,000 square feet of land along the marsh. I mean, almost every other home on Woodward Avenue has maintained lawn right to the edge of the marsh. Ina recognizes that she may have to deal with rising sea levels, rising storm surges in the future, and that's why this is voluntarily not developed. I'd like to challenge, or I don't really see that anywhere else on Woodward Avenue where they've gone to this extent to preserve native vegetation along the edge of the marsh. With respect to the invasive species, I did beef that up a little bit. You requested that at the last meeting. There is a note on the plan here. We're going to work with the landscaper. They're going to go through and make an initial cut and removal of multiflora rose and Asiatic bittersweet, remove that from the site. Ina is a very hands-on type of person. She doesn't mind getting her hands dirty. We're going to educate Ina on what does an emergent Asiatic bittersweet vine look like. You can pull the smaller seedlings out, and you just make that into your habit of walking around the property, keeping an eye out for little seedlings and pull them. I do it on my own property, and it's very effective at keeping the bittersweet or reemergence of multiflora rose at bay. I agree with you, Japanese knotweed is very, very difficult to control without use of an herbicide. Commissioner Sargent mentioned at the last meeting he would not like to see herbicides used. That's fine, and I don't think Ina would either. However, you can do repetitive string trimming on the Japanese knotweed and let it grow about a foot in the springtime, string trim it back, let it grow again, string trim it back. It'll eventually will exhaust its underground reserves, or at least weaken the plant. I've had some success with that on other projects that were very close to marsh, and so we don't need to use. But fortunately, the infestation is not very large here, and with that repetitive string trimming, we probably can weaken it and at least keep it at bay and keep it from not spreading. With respect to removing the invasive species, I do have a specification here. I'm going to work with somebody like me, and for every 10 square feet of invasive species removal, we're going to put a shrub in, 3 to 4 feet tall. It's going to be a native specimen here. So that is going to encourage the revegetation of native plants within the riverfront area and where invasive species were removed. So I think we've addressed the value of the invasive species and how we're going to do it and how we're going to restore it. Mr. Cook mentioned about the size of it's not appropriate to discuss the size of the project here. I'll just go one step further. This is zoning compliant with the exception of the relief that the applicant got from Board of Appeals to allow the structure to move closer to the street. Woodward Avenue and the layout here is a little bit unique. You can see that the road is pushed. It's not really centered in the layout. It's really pushed to the one side, which gives the illusion that there's a lot of space between the pavement and the proposed structure. So we took advantage of that and we're able to move it within 9.9 feet of the front yard setback. I call that an improvement and something that the commission should consider here. Commissioner Gradwall wonders about the amount of fill. The design minimizes the amount of fill. It has a walkout type layout where the back of the house is lower than the front. And you can see there are steps going all the way around the side of the house, both sides, which transitions very nicely from front to back without the use of fill. So very little fill. Matter of fact, they'll probably, they'll be excavating from the house footprint. And so very little use of fill on the property. Mr. Sargent, we talked about no herbicides. Mr. Viteri, he is agreeing. Well, wants more native species plantings. I just described to you that we intend to add more native species. Mr. Gullah kind of mimicked some of the other comments. I told you about Ina getting her hands dirty, and that's how we're going to manage the invasive species removal in the future. And Commissioner Jackson, I've wrestled with this, how to present a clear and concise method to deal with this 1058-5 stuff. The best way that I come up with is, unfortunately, it can't be concise. And it took me 5 pages to walk a reviewer through how I calculated the impacts and how they were mitigated. So I just would refer you beginning page 7 in my narrative, extending through half of page 12. And I think that explains pretty clearly how what impacts are there, what mitigation is required. So if you have any questions after that, I'd be happy to address it. So like I say, I think we're pretty much there.
Okay,
I did go through pages 7 through 12. I went through your whole narrative, and I agree. It's a very difficult thing to delineate clearly. I would like to be reassured that you haven't double counted any mitigation in one standard across another.
Well, the issue for me on mitigation is preservation of vegetation along the riverfront. I don't think you can count that as mitigation. I get that there's an area of square footage that's being preserved. I would count the invasive species removal and the planting of replacement of, new native species to be an improvement, maybe an unquantifiable or a semi-quantifiable improvement, but I wouldn't credit that entire preservation area of 2,000 square feet as part of your mitigation. And I wouldn't want to set that precedent for the commission going forward. I'm not going to discount invasive species removal as an improvement, and maybe it qualifies, under 1058G or H as some sort of, mitigation type improvement for an alteration, but I wouldn't put it at a 2-to-1 level that gives you credit for having 3,000 square feet of mitigation on this project now. And that's the issue for me.
Yeah, and that is the difficulty of these redevelopment projects. DEP circuit rider has told me this is wonderful. You have so much flexibility, but now the commission has to decide what is an equivalent level of environmental protection. It's not just the invasive species, it's also the stormwater management that's included on a single family lot. That's not required, and that is provided as mitigation. The circuit rider has said to me that alone it counts as mitigation. So it is the collection of, I'm not asking the commission to try to quantify one part of the mitigation, but as a whole, we have provided over 2,400 square feet of native plantings. Oh, and there's one other thing I meant to mention too. And I'll show you the landscape plan again. The landscape plan calls for a mix of trees and shrubs, but specifically to deal with the Gloucester 2-to-1 mitigation policy on trees. We're removing 6 trees, and we have, I believe, 13 trees specifically on the plan to deal with the 2-to-1 Gloucester policy. There is no specific riverfront requirement that says, as part of F or G, that says you need to replace trees at 2-to-1. But we have 8 trees along this property line here to create sort of a living fence. And then there's some beech plums and river birch over in this part of the property as well. And the rest of it is a mix of trees and shrubs and pollinator species, all of which the commission has embraced in other projects and trying to deal with. Frankly, you were trying to deal with 2-to-1 mitigation before 2-to-1 mitigation was required. So we have a long history of what the commission has accepted and appreciated. So I'm asking you to look at the entire picture and consider the stormwater management, consider the invasive species removal, consider the fact that there's no lawn proposed on the property, the mix of pollinator species and the preservation of land along the waterfront. So that plus the 24 or almost 2,500 square feet of plantings, I would say that rises to the level of 2 to 1, either as direct mitigation or equivalent level of environmental protection.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manuel. Just to follow up on an earlier comment you made about the fact that invasive removal was considered by the commission regularly as a reasonable offset. The only reason I brought it up today is we're seeing more and more failures to tackle knotweed. We allow it as a commission sometimes, but I've been noticing that it's, again, nearly impossible to eradicate without making it a full-time job. So that's why when it comes to knotweed, at least for me, and probably why the commission has not gone that way recently, is because of that. It's difficult to use that in some cases as mitigation or offsetting mitigation when knotweed is very hard to manage. And I've seen it as in 2 years, it's taken over certain areas beyond fixing. It's very hard. That's why there's been a shift, at least in my world, in terms of using that as mitigation. That's all.
Agreed, and I just want to make sure that you understand knotweed is a very small part of the invasive species on this property.
Understood. Okay.
Could we hear from the agent?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm still wrestling with these numbers as well. You know, when I add up your 2 different areas of the mitigation, the plantings and the invasive eradication, you know, adds up to 4,300 square feet. The total riverfront area on the lot is 12,931 square feet. So the remaining white area on the plan, which is going to be impacted, is 8,628 square feet. But you claim that the resulting degraded area is only going to be 3,947 square feet. So to me, you know, there's still 4,681 square feet that aren't accounted for. And when I look at the plan, I see a lot of white on there. I can't help but think that there's a lot of degraded area that's not being accounted for in your numbers. There's also the area that's outside of the parcel that the roadway, the driveway, the additional paved driveway, the additional walkway that's off the parcel, that's also not being counted in your numbers. So there's additional riverfront area that's being degraded by this project that's not being accounted for because it's not on the parcel. And I don't think that, you know, I believe that should be accounted for. I also wonder if that should require getting a note from the city or whoever the landowner is to be proposing this work on that parcel or on that property. And I also agree, you know, talking about, you know, this invasive management counting as more than restoration. You know, restoration is taking degraded riverfront area and restoring the functions of riverfront. Removing non-native vegetation is good, but you're not actually restoring any of the functions of riverfront. All those functions exist already. You know, so to count it as more than restoration, I think that's a stretch. So I think, you know, to me, this is a situation where the impact area looks much bigger than the mitigation required. You might need to go back and look at how you can reduce that impact.
Yeah, Chuck, the lot area may be 13,000 square feet. Some of that's salt marsh. Some of that was the footprint of the existing structure. So your 12 minus 4 mathematics can't work in that situation. I encourage you to review my narrative, because I try to take you sequentially, you mean a reviewer, not you personally. I try to take a reviewer sequentially through 1058-5, and I think my numbers are pretty solid. With respect to work in the layout, that portion of the driveway or walkway, the regulations are pretty clear. They say degraded areas on the lot. I have never computed walkways or driveways that are off the lot. Nobody has ever gone to the city and said, can I put a driveway from the pavement in the layout to the property line? I mean, that's just, that's pretty standard operation. But I will tell you, I did not take any credit for the portion of the dwelling that actually extended over the property line. It wasn't ours to restore, and so I couldn't take credit for that. And I would suppose it's probably akin to what you're saying is the driveway in the street layout. But if I have to compute that, then I'm going to have to take credit for what is actually off property. And the last thing I just want to point out for the commission's benefit is there are two types of improvement in 1058-5. One of them is restoration. That is restoration of previously degraded areas. This project has about 420 square feet of direct restoration of the former house footprint. What's mentioned in 1058-5G is mitigation. They're two different things. Mitigation and restoration are two different approaches. And F allows you to restore previously degraded areas at a 1-to-1 ratio, and G allows you to provide additional mitigation. We're not trying to restore riverfront function under G. We're just providing mitigation. And again, all of this collectively, I haven't seen a project in front of the commission that provides more mitigation than what I'm showing here. The entire lot is essentially outside the house footprint and some walkways directly adjacent to the home. The entire property is going to be vegetated with native species. So I think we rise to compliance here, and I'll just leave it at that.
All right, so I guess the next question would be do we want to continue, or would you like to let the commission take a breath for the next couple of weeks, or do you want to vote tonight?
Yeah, I could see the commission is not, this is just overly complicated. Frankly, I didn't think we'd close tonight.
Okay.
I would like the commission, if there's any outstanding questions, specific outstanding questions other than mitigation value, because that's your problem. The commission has to deal with this from here forward. Collectively on this site, I'm not looking for, we're not setting precedent. You know about that. You can't set a precedent. We're looking at 12 Woodward Avenue and the circumstances here. So if the commission has any specific information that they would like me to address, let me know, and I'll try to address that before the next meeting.
I'd like to know what's the square footage of the dark green mitigation areas as opposed to the light green invasive area, just total on the entire plan.
I will double check those numbers and get them to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so are you moving 2 weeks out, or?
Yes, please.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282983 at 12 Woodward Avenue to the Conservation Commission meeting of May 1st, I think.
Yep.
Yep.
Charpentier seconds.
We'll call Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gadwall. Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
Member Gullis.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes.
See you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up would be notice of intent. This one has been continued to what date, Chuck?
They requesting to May 1st.
both of them.
Commis-
The next
Commissioner
two-
Jackson, whoops, sorry, Rob.
That's okay.
Yes, the next two.
Next two.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282976 at 171 and 281 Rear Magnolia Avenue to the Conservation Commission meeting of May 1st, 2024.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Gradwell,
yes,
Member Sergeant,
yes,
Member Materi,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. Next up is notice of intent 0282950. They are also looking for a continuation.
Yes, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282950 at 160, 158 Rear and 154A Essex Avenue to the Conservation Commission meeting of May 1st, 2024.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
yes,
Member Gradwell,
yes,
Member Sergeant,
yes,
Member Materi,
Yes.
Member Bella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, Chuck, are there any more continuations? So we don't have anyone waiting around?
I believe that is it for continuation.
Okay. Next up then would be notice of intent 0282982 134 Wheeler Street, Cam Holdings LLC to raise and rebuild single-family home, walkways, masonry stone wall, and reconstruction of an existing wood pier and riverfront area, coastal bank, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and buffer zone to coastal resource areas. John Judd of Gateway Consultants Inc. representing.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing the Palazzola family for this project. You may recall that at our last meeting, there were some marching orders that we had to modify the plan and to provide additional information. That was two meetings ago that allowed us to get the team together to make these modifications as requested. Specifically, we did provide a copy of the existing Chapter 91 license. I think Peter had requested that. I think Chuck had also requested that our landscape plan coincide with our site plan, which has been submitted as part of our revision. And there was a few other items there. The Shellfish Constable had requested pier supports if the existing float bottomed out, and of course we answered that this actually at low tide we have about 6 feet of clearance below the float, so that there is no bottoming out of that float. And then I think there were a few other questions that I believe we addressed, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have since that meeting that took place 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Judd. We'll open up for public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 134 Wheeler Street may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 22 attendees and there's one hand up, Liam O'Connell.
Liam, can you hear me?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Name and address for the record.
Good evening, everybody. Liam O'Connell from Farrell Smith O'Connell, Archheim Aprons, with an address at 46 Middle Street in Gloucester. And I am here on behalf of the owner of 132.5 Wheeler Street, the direct abutter to the south side of 134, or the left side. And I have to first stress that I had problems finding all of these documents. I didn't find them in the project folder, but I did find them eventually at the beginning of the meeting in the tonight's folder. So I've looked through, what I can. certainly my client has concerns being the direct abutter, as this project is entirely within the buffer zone. And the home it's a much larger home that's proposed, which will be built much closer to the river, about at least 40 feet further closer to the river than the existing structure. And the entire property, the entire proposal is within that buffer zone. And I believe that some of the questions posed during the March 20th meeting, some answers may be coming tonight with some of the mitigation, the specific numbers of mitigation. One point of confusion that I have is I did see throughout the meeting minutes and the documents in the file that the applicant is contending that they're not getting closer to the river because of the existing pool. There is an existing pool there that apparently is going to be removed. But the home is getting much closer to the river. The pool obviously is there, and that pool, if the proposal goes through, will be removed. But the actual home is in fact getting much closer to the actual resource area. And so it's much more of an expansion in that riverfront area. I do have obviously some questions about this seawall, as it appears that the seawall is certainly more than 4 feet tall, but there is a record within the file that says that the seawall is going to be less than 4 feet tall. So I'm a little confused about that. And as far as the tree replacement, there's 8 trees that are going to be removed as part of this proposal, which, due to the 2-to-1 ratio, 16 need to be replaced. And a big chunk of those, about half almost, are going to be directly to the southeast of the southern property line. They're being removed from the northerly property line, and they're going to be replaced on the other side of the home on the southern property line. I know this isn't Conservation Commission's concern, but all those trees are eventually going to grow, and they'll completely obliterate my client's view, which there are no trees there right now. So my client is in opposition of this due to what I've stated in some of these hanging chads and questions that we have. So with that, and lastly, one additional detail with this existing structure being removed. The year that was built certainly is full of asbestos. So my client is very concerned about asbestos mitigation if and when this existing home is demolished. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
We do not have any other hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close public comment period. I guess we can move on to roll call commissioner vote comments.
Member Charpentier.
Yeah, this is the kind of project that makes me wonder why we bother to have a buffer zone. But that said, I would like to know if that house can be moved further back away from the resource area. And I wasn't aware about any asbestos here, so perhaps someone can, or Mr. Judd can speak to that. And whether or not testing has been done and asbestos has been found, and if so, the mitigation for that. That's it.
You're muted.
Oh, one more thing. For the trees that are being removed, what is the size of the trees that will replace those that are being removed?
Bill, you're up.
Bill?
Yeah, this goes back to what one of the abutters just mentioned. It appears that it's going forward closer to the resource area of the house. Because if I went and looked at the ZBA drawing, the picture shows the existing project and then the proposed. And the proposed appears to be pulled further back. But there's a line on it that shows a foundation. So I don't know which is which. And the drawing that John had submitted, it's very difficult. There's so many lines on it, it's very difficult to see it. So I don't know if it's possible to pull up that ZBA drawing and just associate it with the existing drawing that John has. That was my only concern right now. And the trees, obviously, I think the trees should be moved to the front of the resource area, or as close to where they were originally. That is one of the things that they're trying to encourage us to do, is force the restoration towards the resource area and not further away from it.
Rebel,
No further questions.
Member Sergeant.
Thank you for providing the existing condition plan. It was helpful. Some mitigation plans are behind the house and not between the house and the resource area. The same question that Mr. Cook had. And I'm wondering why the 30-inch tree in the lawn area near the river is proposed to be removed. If vessels are used in rebuilding the wood pier, they must not be allowed to ground out. All construction material for the pier must be non-hazardous to the marine environment. There should be a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings, and all dewatering must be adequately treated before being discharged. Thank you.
Member Terry. Muted.
Thanks, sorry. The DBA plan does have a very helpful overlay between current conditions and the proposed work, and it is clear that the house is being moved closer towards the river. And I get that it's all behind the existing, it's not closer to the river than the existing swimming pool and the existing 10-foot high retaining wall that is, on the river side of the swimming pool. It just seems odd to me that the plan calls for extending that existing granite retaining wall across into the lawn area now, where there's no degraded area. So it's sort of, you can kind of split the lot in half. The left side sort of has a lot of degraded area that goes out towards the riverfront area. The right side doesn't. So I don't know if adding degraded area or adding proposed structures on the right side where there's just existing lawn counts as improving work towards the resource area or not. To me, it seems like it clearly is. And the structure as a whole on the lot is moving closer towards the resource area. So I guess that's more of a question for discussion and, the thoughts of the other commissioners. As far as mitigation plantings go, I think they should definitely be located closer to the resource area, as close to the resource area as possible, along the seawall and back from the seawall up towards the shore as it goes up, would seem to be the best place to locate mitigation plantings. I think overall, I'd like to see all of the 1058.5 through E criteria broken down with the individual square footages per criteria, so we can get a sense of the amount of mitigation that's required for each and where compliance is and where non-compliance is with those.
Member Gullo.
Pretty much everything everybody else said covers my stuff, except for, Linda, you don't have to worry when they go to pull the permit. That's when the asbestos is required to be tested and found removed, so you don't have to worry about
that. Member Jackson.
Yes, my only other question in addition to the previous ones is, how is a swimming pool considered? Is it where it's pretty much able to be built by right? Is it considered degraded area, previously degraded area? Does it count towards moving things further away from the water?
I believe it's non-jurisdictional.
Yeah, pretty much. So therefore,
what can you do, right?
If that's considered kind of by right, then the footprint would be considered moving forward, I think.
I think, I mean, it's an absence of topsoil, so I would consider it to be a degraded area.
Yeah, I just don't know. I'm sure DEP has a policy on it somewhere.
Okay, Mr. Judge, you want to respond?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, members and Mr. Chairman. Maybe I'll just start at the top where I took some notes from Attorney O'Connell. The house is, there's no question the house is being proposed closer. I thought we made that clear at the first meeting. And we did supply that existing conditions plan. I know that we have a lot of lines here, but we'd rather leave things on than not have them and answer questions and have the detail that is typically required. If an additional sheet is needed to separate, we can certainly do that. But we do have that separate landscaping plan that was done by Matt Ehrlich, and that kind of is more of a clean plan showing mitigation plantings. But nonetheless, we don't want to misrepresent anything on the house location, and it is closer. It's about halfway through the existing pool. With that said, the wall, top of the wall elevation is shown on the plan to match the adjacent wall elevations for each side, and that's 8.4. And we have spot grades along the base, existing spot grades along the base of the wall, ranging from 6.17 to 4.73 to 4.4. So it's we're at the most it's anywhere from 1 to 4 feet tall. So it's really a mood issue in terms of, and if the building inspector feels we need a building permit, we'll obviously for that wall we'll go ahead and do that. That's not an issue. As far as the trees blocking the view, we can certainly work. Mr. Palazzolo, I'm sure will be happy to work with Mr. Donovan to try to rectify that and mitigate and plant where it's not affecting anyone's view to the extent possible. At the same time, we're hearing comments from the commissioners that they'd like to see more planting between the house and the river and relocate it between the house from the house and the road section up closer toward the river. And so we're going to have to work with Matt on that to maybe try to achieve what everyone's looking for. There was a question about the asbestos, and I think the chair answered that it would meet all the requirements. If asbestos is found, that would be removed in accordance with Mass state laws. And as far as the tree sizes to replace, I believe we have 6-inch diameter at breast height requirement under the ordinance that we're going to follow. And there is a plan again by Matt Ehrlich that shows the same mitigation areas, and everything is broken down on his plan in terms of areas where things are going to be. Where mitigation is proposed and where it and how it meets the total cumulative requirement as shown on the chart. And getting down to Bill's comment, Bill Cook had asked if the proposed house was closer to the river. I think we answered that. And Mr. Sargent, why are we removing the 36-inch tree and the mitigations? Why is that between the house and the road as opposed to back? And as far as the existing tree, that was studied by Dan Mayer, who is a Mass certified arborist back in December, and his opinion of that white ash is the tree is in decline and has emerald ash borer infestation. So I don't know what that means exactly, but it was looked at. The Palazzolas did spend the money to have that and other trees studied prior to this plan being prepared and submitted. And again, we're providing over the 200% mitigation. But again, we're open to modifications as the board sees fit. And Peter, a breakdown of 1058E items, we can certainly do that for the plantings. We're confident that we meet the requirements. We thought that was all itemized in our last revision, but we can certainly break that down in bullet points as requested. And as far as the pool previously degraded, and Joe's question, in my mind, there's no question. This is a concrete pool that, or a gunite pool that is surrounded by a concrete deck. And it's, if this isn't degraded, I don't know what is in terms of, riverfront area. So that would all be removed and, replaced with the, you know, what I consider a very robust, planting plan. So I think I've touched upon everything, and I'll hand it back to the chair. And if there's anything else we can address, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, Rob, maybe Chuck, can you pull up the ZBA plan?
Yeah,
I'm still hung up on that because it looks so totally different. What went to ZBA to what's in the file for us for.
yeah,
You gotta understand is map geo is not completely accurate at times too, so.
It's not even
also-
close, Rob.
What?
It's not even close.
I also created this to kind of show the difference of the, you know, the green is the current portions of the property that would be degraded, and the red is kind of like the newer areas that will be degraded, additionally degraded under the new proposed plan. You know, in my mind, that is expansion toward the riverfront area. You know, I think there's 2-to-1 mitigation under you know, 1058.5 E, but it's there, you know, I don't think there's the mitigate or 1058, sorry, yeah, 1058.5 E, but I think, you know, I think we still need to look at expansion within the 100-foot portion, as well as expansion towards the riverfront under 1058.5 C and D. Let me try to find that ZBA plan. Yeah.
While Chuck is looking for that, if I could, Mr. Chairman, the existing stone walkway sort of stands out on Chuck's markup, the colored markup, and there is an existing stone walkway that goes down over on the right-hand side as you face the river that we don't show. It was sort of it's underneath vegetation right now. What we can do is show that to be, and show the location in number 1, and number 2, show it to be relocated as shown. But we're proposing a stone walkway. The existing is a mortared impervious walkway. So that's more on our end. So that may you know, be helpful in terms of, obviously they would like access down to the river, and they're okay with doing it with means that would be acceptable to the commission in terms of maybe a pervious surface or loose laid with drainage, where right now everything is in that walkway is draining and shedding water because it's a mortared stone walk. And I can follow up and show that on a revised plan, on an updated plan, to show where that exists in the offsetting areas in the riverfront. So I just want to make that point.
Is that covered in grass? Because I don't remember a stone walkway.
Yeah, no, it's actually under that juniper. If you remember going down, Chuck, toward the river, there's a large juniper that's going to remain over on the right-hand side, and we do have some photos that unfortunately I don't have at my fingertips. But I will get that. That was one of the items I was hoping to discuss. We had a rainstorm last Friday. It was very difficult to get out and about, but I was hoping to show that to you if we were able to meet over there. But I'll take some I'll get a picture over to you, and it would be helpful. Yeah, it's over to the right. It's underneath the vegetation now.
Covered in grass?
No, it's not covered with grass. It's actually it's almost on the lot line to the left. So if you're looking up, it's over on the left. And Mike Palazzola had actually shown me a photo, and I was surprised that I didn't see it because it's underneath a lot of branches from that existing juniper. That's not shown in this picture. It's over on the left along the stone wall.
Well, if someone can get a better picture of that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah. Because I just remember grass lawn and that's where you're showing that new path. From my tell.
Yep. I understand.
All right, anything else, commissioners?
Yeah,
Anything-
Chuck, go back to the picture.
Yep.
I'm trying to get it clarified because it shows the foundation. I'm not. No, the ZBA one.
Oh, sorry.
See, no, the brighter orange shows the proposed footprint. And this thing says that's the foundation right there. And you can see that's almost not even touching the swimming pool. So I don't know what that lighter shaded area is, but it doesn't appear to be part of the proposed footprint. And I kind of get hung up on that. And then, you know, it looks like we're trying to, you know, go 20 feet further forward. Is that correct, John?
You know, I'm looking at this plan. Obviously, Bill, I did not prepare this plan and it doesn't look like the same footprint. So I'm not sure where they are with the ZBA or if this is even, I'm looking for the date on the plan, but this
Well,
is not,
Who created this document?
that is done by Olson and Dioli Architects.
Okay. I think you need to talk to them and clarify. what we're
Yeah, I think this is the same thing. We have a disconnect as we had with the last one with their the landscape plan. There was a inconsistency. So I see what you're saying, Bill.
Mhm.
And I'd like to get that. I'm not sure how this plan got into the file. Maybe it was taken off the portal. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Are you ready to move to continue to 5-1? Is that what you're looking for? Or?
Yeah, that'd be fine. I just want to make sure we're clear on the marching orders. I think Peter would like a more comprehensive breakdown. I'm gonna provide some more information on that existing walk to Chuck. I'd be happy to meet out there, Chuck, or if you just want me to survey locate it and take some photos, I can do that as well. Other items,
I think the biggest thing, John, is going to be getting that site plan straightened out because it's confusing the heck out of everybody.
Yep, got it. We'll just make sure it's consistent. You're talking about the ZBA plan, making sure it's consistent with this plan.
Something seems a little awry, that's all.
Okay. Very good.
All right.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282982 at 134 Wheeler Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of May 1st, 2024.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes,
Member Materi,
Yes.
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is, we got a few RDAs here, correct?
Member Bill, I do see Mr. Favaza's hand up. I don't know if he had something to say about the 160, 158 rear, and 154A Essex. I don't know if he's maybe, should we allow him to talk before we continue on?
Sure.
All right.
Hi, thank you. For the record, Joel Favaza, Seaside Legal. I was actually, I represent the owners of 134 Wheeler, and so I was raising my hand during that, trying to get pulled in for that conversation. To the degree anyone wants clarity on the site plan discrepancy and Ms. Charpentier's question, I'm happy to answer it. If you'd like us to answer it at a future meeting, now that you've closed it, I can answer it at a future meeting also.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I think we've closed that for now, so happy to future meeting. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, back to new business. RDA 1802
We
12.
still have Washington Street, don't we?
Yep.
Skip over another one.
Yep.
Notice of intent 0282986424 Washington Street, Greg Shoup. Construction of a garage, relocation of a shed, and mitigation plantings for riverfront area. Land subject to coastal storm flowage, buffer zone to coastal bank. John Judd, Gateway Consultants Inc., represented.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Just a quick follow-up to our last meeting on the 3rd of April. There were a couple of comments, some marching orders that I believe, took care of, resubmitted the plan with a revision date of April 9th. And specifically, Bill Cook asked that we show the relocation of the shed, which we've added to the plan. And then Peter had requested that we add planting more along the riverfront in the seawall, as opposed to in a triangle fashion, which is what was previously shown. And I think that was it. There was additional area needed for the garage closer to the river, I think was one of Peter's comments as well. So all of which have been addressed on this revised plan. I can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, next up, I'll go to the public comment. Anyone in the public wishes to speak for or against the project at 424 Washington Street may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 17 attendees and there are no hands up.
Seeing none, hearing none, I close the public comment period. Roll right into commissioner roll call comment.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Gradwell,
Comment.
Member Sergeant,
Thank you for the revisions. There should be a 2-year monitoring for the mortality and mitigation plantings. Thank you.
Member Siri,
I don't see how there's an improvement over existing conditions, which I think is the main redevelopment performance standard. You've got a garage that's going over a shed and that shed being moved, but what you really have is just an increase in impervious area, and there's nothing else. I mean, and there's mitigation, but mitigation doesn't count as an improvement in my mind, because mitigation is how you address sort of the, non-compliance with the criteria. There's no ability in 10.585A to have mitigation under effort G, or mitigation or restoration effort G, account for it. So I don't see where the improvement is for riverfront functions on this. You've just added a garage and you've moved a shed onto the lawn. There's really no difference than sort of what were the conditions before.
Okay,
Member Gullo,
no further comments.
Member Jackson,
No further comments.
Okay, Mr. Judge, you're welcome to respond.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Peter, for your comments. As you can see, the proposed garage is over a packed gravel driveway. We're staying within the confines of that. With that said, we're adding almost 900 square feet of native plantings along the river, which do not exist now. So you're going from a packed gravel area to having a garage over that same footprint, or less than that same footprint. But at the same time, we're in my opinion, and historically, what we've done is, as long as you're enhancing and improving the waterfront, the riverfront rather, with the native plantings, it meets the criteria for redevelopment, and we're doing this at 200% of that increase. So this one I thought was a no-brainer, but I'm open to any suggestions if you want some more plants there.
Well, is your 200%? Are you saying this is your 2-to-1, or is this an improvement, above and beyond what the required mitigation is?
I would say both. So the improvement is clear to me, because there's grass there. We're putting in substantial shrubbery and native plants there that provide not only for habitat, but also more of a buffer between man activities and the riverfront there. So less foot traffic, etc. But I think it meets both criteria, checks both boxes, because we're providing over 2-to-1 mitigation, but also improving that riverfront over the current conditions.
Right, but you're you're adding more impervious over gravel driveway, which was previously pervious, and you're adding
Well,
a
that
shed
would be
to grass
if you've
area that's
seen it.
also previous pervious.
Yeah, it's packed gravel, so the coefficient of runoff of packed gravel is not too far off from you know, an asphalt roof.
Okay, well then I'd say you know, a restoration of that would be maybe in line as some improvement, but I don't know, if you have more planting than is required by the mitigation, you know, maybe I would call that an improvement. Still like to see it along the entire length of the seawall.
Okay.
If I could interrupt here, I think my understanding of how DEP is applying these standards is that you can't double count stuff, that the improvement is 1058.5A, the expansion, it falls under 1058.5D, and you have to deal with those separately. That's my understanding of how DEP interprets this.
Right, and 1058.5A doesn't have an offset for mitigation, the way that B, C, D, and E do. So you can't just take your square footage of, you know, your X amount of square feet above the 10% requirement, or X amount of square feet closer to the riverfront area, and do 2-to-1 mitigation or 1-to-1 restoration for that. You have to have an improvement in general over as kind of a standalone thing. It can't be mitigated, and I wouldn't think that the mitigation counts towards, you know, your improvement.
Mr. Judd?
Yeah, I mean, another item that we could add is maybe a rain garden, you know, to allow for, I know the 1058 does allow for improvements for roof drainage for that garage, which we could certainly, again, it's proposed over a packed gravel surface right now, but if we were to augment that with maybe a rain garden between the garage or along the garage and the river, would that, in your opinion, be a sufficient enough improvement to the riverfront area?
Mr. Viteri?
Yeah, I think that's an improvement over existing conditions, yes, because
Okay,
there's, you
all
know,
right.
there's additional infiltration for your impervious surface that's not currently there.
Okay. Yeah, we could certainly add that. That's not a big deal to do that.
Okay, I guess the next magical question is, first of all, did we get through everyone, roll call comments, and we went to Mr. Judd? So do we need to see, I think we need to see that on a plan, Mr. Judd, so if you could put that on for next week or the next meeting?
That's up to you. It's a fairly minor change for that roof line to add that detail and show the infiltration. But if I know you have a big agenda next meeting, it's your call. We'd obviously like to get it closed, but subject to that, adding that to the plan. It's a standard detail that we have for a rain garden. So I would leave it to the commission.
Commissioner's okay with? John?
Yeah, I think if we add it as a condition, approve, you know, based on that condition.
I think you could submit a new plan and Chuck can give the okay. I think it's a pretty minor addition.
And we can have that over tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, so we want to move to close the hearing.
Yeah. Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0282986 at 424 Washington Street.
Charpentier seconds?
We'll call Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell. Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Gullah,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI 0282986 at 424 Washington Street with previously discussed conditions, as well as the current condition of submitting to the agent prior to issuance of approval, the rain garden detail near the garage.
Charpentier seconds?
We'll call Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Vella,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. Okay, next up, now we're into new business. RDA 1802, 12 Beachland Avenue. Alan Billion to installation of a subsurface drainage pipes, dry creek bed, native vegetation and land subject coastal storm flowage, buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Gregory Harris of Briarwood Landscaping representative.
Yeah, I'm not seeing Mr. Harris in the attendees. If there's somebody else here to represent this project, please raise your hand. I am not seeing anyone at the moment.
12 Beachland Ave.
Not seeing any hands up.
All right, we can move ahead, and if someone shows up, we can manage it. It's an RDA, I'm not overly concerned. So the next one would be RDA 1803, 54 Grapevine Road, Carl Smith, for construction of a deck with portico, removal of stairs and landing in buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Carl Smith representing. Carl, can you hear me?
Muted.
Can you unmute yourself, Carl?
Yes, hello, everybody.
Hello, Carl. Can you give your name and address for the record?
My name's Carl Smith. I'm the homeowner at 54 Grapevine Road.
Okay.
So we're here, we purchased the property in January and we started a renovation subject to building permit for the interior of the building. And then we are looking to add a about 10-foot by 6-foot area of additional roofing, which is going to be open on 3 sides, and then a 6-foot by 17-foot deck to the front of the house. So you can see that there in the sketch. Thank you, Chuck. So the RDA, the area that we're working in is about 80 feet from the edge of bordering vegetated wetland, which is located in the back of the house, bordering a existing lawn. And let's see if you can. So yeah, there's a picture of the house, picture of the existing driveway. Can you go to the next one, Chuck? Yeah. So right here in orange, you can see the extent of the decking. And there's 3 footings, 12-inch diameter sonotubes that'll go down about 4 feet. It's all the work is in existing lawn or a mulch bed with some ornamental plantings. It's all about 80 feet away from the edge of bordering vegetated wetland. I did delineate that myself because I was in the environmental consulting business for about 18 years before I retired and moved on to other things. So I was pleased that it all kind of came back to me. So the work can be considered exempt under the Wetland Protection Act because it's more than 50 feet away from the buffer zone. It's in an existing lawn, and it can be considered exempt minor activity under 10.02. It's accessory to residential structure. And then, I think it can be considered exempt from the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance as well, because it's maintaining or repairing, but not substantially changing or enlarging a private building. The house was built in 1959. And so in order to get approved for this little, what amounts to an aesthetic you know, an aesthetic change to the house, removing the existing door in the front to the house. We were advised to come before the commission seeking a negative determination.
Okay, sir, thank you. So next up, I'll open up for public comment. Anyone in the public wish to speak for or against the project at, where are we? 12 Beachland Avenue. Do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 15 attendees and there's no hands up.
Seeing none, hearing none, close the public comment period. Commissioner roll call comment.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Gradwell,
No comment.
Member Sergeant.
I think you're increasing impervious surface with that roof, and if so, I think there needs to be some mitigation.
Member Materi,
No comments.
Member Gullo,
Similar comment to what Mr. Sargent said. I think you're going to need to at least do a little planting, additional planting to offset the roof. Once you add impervious surfaces to a roof like that, we end up with an inability to allow water to move into the ground. So we require usually some sort of mitigation. I think if you bring something to the agent, more than likely we can move this ahead with the intent of giving us a little planting plan to show us some vegetation, ideally near the resource, to offset your little project.
did I skip Member Materi?
Nope, I had no comments.
Oh, sorry. And Member Jackson.
I just wanted to know if the deck is pervious or not, and also you're removing the concrete step. How are you going to access the deck?
Okay, Mr. Smith, you're up. I mean,
Yeah, so a few things. The concrete step that you can see in that picture. So we're actually moving the door from the side of the house to the middle of the house. And then we're putting this this roof over it. The decking is is impervious. We're not adding any. So you can see where the existing door was. With that concrete deck there, which amounts to about 24 square feet of impervious that already has been removed by the contractor. And in that orange proposed decking area, we're adding, I mean, it's going to be deck. It's not going to be, I mean, the water's going to shed right off of it, you know, underneath. So I wouldn't consider, pardon me?
the problem is your little roof over your entry, which is fine. You just need to offset. It won't take a lot. We're just gonna, more than likely, we'll just continue. We'll put it in the RDA to that you'll just submit a small sketch to the agent showing a couple of plantings to offset the roof mitigation. When you add a roof, you impede the ability for things to matriculate through the soils. So we require that you mitigate that.
Okay, and that's even if there's no walls around that roof, because the
Correct.
water.
From the
Yeah.
sky, and it lands on your roof, and that's a non-pervious roof. Yes, it applies.
Okay.
Actually, we could even do your sonotubes. They too create a footprint, but we don't need to get into that. I think if we cover it here with the plantings, we'll be good to
Yep.
go.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything else to add, Chuck? We got the public, nobody in the public round to respond, so all right. This is an RDA.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for RDA 1803 at 54 Grapevine Road.
Charpentier seconds?
Oh, Member Charpentier,
Yes?
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Materi,
Yes.
Member Gullo,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson moves for negative determination for RDA 1803 at 54 Grapevine Road with the condition that 1-to-1 mitigation planting be installed towards the resource area.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Villa,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, sir, you're all set.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next up is RDA 180354 Grapevine Avenue. Oh, we just did cover.
No, that was what we just did, Rob.
Yeah, I just figured that one out. Next is
Okay.
RDA 1804 One Harbor Loop, Building Center, Gloucester, repairs building foundation, frost wall, and parking area in land subject to coastal storm flowage and designated port area. Michael Faherty, represent. Mr. Faherty, can you hear us? We've had technical issues before. Mr. Faherty, unmute yourself if you can. Now you did, now you gotta unmute yourself. You are muted. There you are. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Michael, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Faherty, can you hear us? All right. Why don't we table him and move ahead?
Yep.
So we tabled Beachland as well, is that what we did? Which one, the other one we tabled?
Yes.
Okay.
Still not seeing anybody from Beachland in there.
Okay. All right, so we'll bump up to the harbor. Now we got Harbor Loop. We'll do notice of intent. We'll move on to that. So we have a notice of intent 0282987 83 Dolliver Neck Drive, Trevor Lucas, for replacement of 216 linear feet of concrete seawall in coastal bank, land subject to coastal storm flowage, in coastal beach. Richard A. Kirby of LEC Environmental Consultants, Inc., representing.
Yes, good evening. Rich Kirby, LEC Environmental. Not sure why my camera isn't working, but I'm here. I'm representing Trevor Lucas, the applicant and owner of 23 Dolliver Neck Drive. The commission may recall we had filed a notice of intent on behalf of a former contractor back in the fall to repair and replace a similar section of or smaller section of retaining wall. Well, Trevor has since hired a new contractor who inspected. Tim Corrigan is his name. He's on the line tonight if you want to upgrade him to a panelist. But Tim inspected the wall and made a determination that there are lots of fissures and cracks, and the rest of the wall is also not stable. So Trevor has to replace the entire 216-foot length of seawall. So we filed a certificate of compliance indicating, little if any work was done with the prior notice of intent application that we filed in the fall. And we're filing a new notice of intent, which includes this plan here prepared by William Sparagus that shows the entire seawall to be replaced. Similar methodologies, although we have a foundation proposed for the wall. Tim's here to talk about the constructability. Tim has a lot of experience in Gloucester specifically. And we also have the section of the retaining wall proposed there. The only thing that's really changing is the linear feet of Coastal Bank is going from roughly 35 to what we had previously to, again, roughly 216. We did include a copy of the notice of intent to the Division of Marine Fisheries, and they replied, Iris replied to Chuck and I yesterday, or perhaps this morning, I don't remember, but with no comments. I think in large part because we incorporated the comments that Iris had at the last notice of intent into this one. So I think we're positioned pretty well, but happy to turn it over to the commission and answer any questions that the commission may have. And you know, Tim's also available to discuss as well.
Okay, Rich, we're gonna make this go, we're gonna go through the public first. And then just take note, and at the end, you can answer all those questions, okay? Did you get that, Rich?
Yes, thank you.
So first up, I'll open up for public comment. Anyone in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at $83 Neck Drive may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 14 attendees and there are currently no hands up.
Seeing none, hearing none, a closed public comment period. We'll move on over to Commissioner roll call comment.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Gradwell,
No comment.
Member Sargent,
No comment.
Member Viteri,
Comments.
Member Gullo,
No comment.
and Member Jackson.
No comment. What about you, Chuck? Do you have any?
I just wanted to add that I also did check in with the Shellfish Constable and they did not have any concerns with this project.
Okay. All right, shall we move forward then?
Excuse me?
Shall we move forward, Rob?
Sounds good.
All right, Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0282987 at $83 Neck Drive.
Charpentier seconds.
We'll call Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell, Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Gullo,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI 0282987 at $83 Neck Drive with conditions contained in the documentation.
Charpentier seconds.
Call Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Gullo,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Very much.
Have a good night.
Yes, you as well.
Next up, do we want to jump back on any of these? Do we have anybody, Chuck, for
Check here in a second. Just
Beachland would be first one.
yeah. I still don't see Mr. Harris in there. Is there anybody here for 12 Beachland Avenue? Does not look like it. Do you want to keep this one open or continue it?
It's getting late. I mean, if they haven't showed up yet, I mean, we can keep up with one more, I guess.
Okay.
Why don't we go through this final, why don't we check Harbor Loop?
Yep.
Mr. Faherty.
I'll try to promote him again.
Trying to get you in, Mr. Faherty. Oh, I see. Looks like we're connecting to audio. And he keeps shutting himself off. Can you hear us, Mr. Faherty? I don't think you can. Mike Faherty, can you hear us? If you can't hear us, Mike, you're gonna have to probably come to the next meeting. If you can get somebody to help you with your technology, that'd be wonderful. But we have to keep this moving. We will try back at the end of the meeting one more time, out of courtesy. Okay. So Beachland, we got nobody. Grapevine Road, we dealt with. One Harbor Loop, we have nobody responding. So why don't we move on to 31? We have a notice of intent 02828 with no DP number at this time. Winthrop Avenue, Martha Brennan, to raise and rebuild a single-family home and associated porches, stairs, walkways, retaining walls, patio, driveway expansion, conversion of a barn garage, and invasive species control in coastal bank, riverfront area, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and buffer zone to salt marsh. Robert Griffin, Griffin Engineering LLC, representing.
Good evening and thank you. When we do have a DEP file number assigned, it's 2988. I can bring up the site plan on my screen, or Chuck, you can do it. Either one's fine with me, but.
Yeah, bring it up.
Okay.
Bob, I'm not sure if I asked for your name and address for the record.
So Bob Griffin of Griffin Engineering, 495 Cabot Street, Beverly, Mass. So we're here on behalf of Martha Brennan and William Hines. There's a little interesting story with the application materials. They are Gloucester High School graduates, and they actually were married at this property in 1991. So that was a long time ago. They're looking to basically tear down the existing house and replace it with what will be essentially their retirement home and live there permanently. The house, at least according to the Gloucester assessors, was built in about 1920, and it's in poor shape. The topography of the site is sort of a mound, and the lowest elevation is along the Little River, sort of down there at elevation 6. There's a very prominent exposed ledge at the center of the site as you come up along Winthrop Avenue. That's elevation 52. So that's about a 46-foot grade change across the lot. The lot's about 41,000 square feet. And so the 10%, this is a riverfront lot, the 10% would be about 4,000 square feet. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along. The wetland resources here are the riverfront from the Little River. We've got land subject to coastal storm flowage down along the river as well, elevation 13. All of our construction work is at elevation 24 or higher, so there's really no impact on, or potential impact on land subject to coastal storm flowage. There's a coastal bank on the property, which is sort of driven by topography. And on our plans, the CB line, and my little cursor is tracing now. It comes up and hits the house, and then it heads out towards Winthrop Avenue. There's some salt marsh along the river as well, and so some of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone to the salt marsh. And obviously it's, within 100-foot, there's a 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh, but everything's in jurisdiction. It's all, again, the entire property is in the riverfront zone. The applicants have hired Slate Blue architects from South Hamilton, and they've done, I think, a very nice job proposing a new footprint, a new house, basically on the same footprint as the existing house. I'll zoom in a little bit here. So the gray box is the existing foundation. You can see the proposed foundation is a little bit bigger as you go away from the river. I think this is about 3 or 4 feet wider house. The porch gets a little bit bigger than the existing house, but not much. There's the steps. You can see this, the new porch lines up with the existing steps. And over on this side, here's the gray is some existing steps. So there's a passageway from the screened-in porch down that way as well. So really, I think for a challenging site, they've done a nice job improving the look of the structure and staying within the existing disturbed area. We also have a landscape plan that was prepared by Matt Ulrich, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along as well. First, the applicants want to reuse the existing septic system. So just off of the house is the septic tank and the leaching field, just a little to the north of that. If you've been to the site, you might recognize a round brick structure, almost looks like an oversized pizza oven. We think that's an old cistern, and that gets removed as part of the proposed work. The driveway coming in off of Winthrop, basically, we're gonna reuse that driveway. And we're gonna improve the parking area next to the house to make it a little bit easier to get from the driveway into the house and a little bit easier to turn around and get back out onto Winthrop. We also have a proposal to replace the wooden, well, not replace, but support the existing barn that's just on the left as you come in from Winthrop. So the barn's about 18 feet by 28 feet. And the plan on that is just to simply lift up the structure, move it out of the way, put a proper concrete foundation and concrete slab down, and then replace the barn on that new foundation, and then convert that structure into a garage. The driveway is the blue area here. And you can see we're trying to create a reasonably level, area to park your car and then walk up into the porch and into the house here. This is mostly within an existing driveway and existing steps and patio, but we are going to add a little retaining wall here on the left side to create the level area necessary for that turning area and for the safe pedestrian passage. As part of the project, the applicants have retained Chicora Tree Service to do an inventory of existing trees, and so we've marked on the plan, I think 11. There may be, I think there's 12. I'm sorry. No, I'll keep going. There's 10 or 11 trees that are marked with X to be removed. Most of these are white pine trees that are near the end of their life, according to Chicora Tree Service, and I think there's 1 or 2 oaks. And the landscaping plan from Aldrich Design also notes the installation of 12 new trees, as well as a large area of mitigation plantings in the front of the building. So let me just switch to the landscape plan here. This is the Aldrich landscaping plan. Along the left side of this retaining wall that's holding up the driveway are 10 eastern red cedars. There's also some amelanchiers, serviceberry here and here. And then the shrub and perennial and grass plantings are along the entranceway here, 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 and here. And there's a permeable paver patio, this circular structure, which is around 18 feet in diameter at that particular location. There's also I won't go into this in great detail, but if we're interested later, we can go over the landscaping shrubs and grasses that have been chosen. They're all seem to be the types of plants you've seen before, and they're native and I think well suited for this particular site, as you might expect. Back to our plan for a moment. It's a riverfront area, and it is certainly a redevelopment. We did note with our little mitigation chart here that the existing degraded riverfront area is around 3,000 square feet. The proposed is about 5,025 square feet. So that's a little bit over the 5,000 square foot threshold that's in the Wetland Protection Act. So we're about 25 square feet over that. I think I'm going to mute myself for 1 second. I got a train coming by.
I think we lost you. You muted yourself.
You said there was a train coming.
Sorry about that. Yeah, the trains are running on time tonight. Yeah. So I think we're appropriately mitigating for the alteration. We've got about 500 square feet of shrub planting beds. We've got the 12 trees that are being replaced along the retaining wall and the amelanchiers that I mentioned. And we also have about 2,000 square feet of invasive species control. There's greenbrier. I mean, you've probably been in greenbrier beds. There's just nothing else growing in there but greenbrier, and it's going to continue to creep up the hill and around the site. So we'd like to get rid of that. And so we've got some greenbrier control downhill of the building here, and that's about 2,000 square feet. So I think when the project's completed, it's going to be a significant improvement to existing conditions. I think, replacing this poor condition structure into a new modern home that will serve the applicants well for many, many years is an improvement to the property. It's really a modest house. This isn't a huge mansion or anything like that. It'll be a nice improvement to the neighborhood, I think. I think removing those dangerous trees is an improvement as well. And as I said, lots of mitigation. And with that, I'd be happy to address any questions.
Okay, next up, the next part of our process. Open it up to public comment. So anybody who wishes to speak for or against the project at 31 Winthrop Avenue, you do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 14 attendees. There are 2 hands up. The first is Mike Faraday, and I doubt he's talking about this project, but we'll allow him to talk for a moment.
Hello, Mr. Faraday, can you hear us? Hello?
Ask if Can you hear me?
We
Can
can't
you
hear
hear
you. Hello?
Jeepers
Got
Christ.
2 devices open.
Okay, and
I closed mine.
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank God.
All right, well, you're not speaking on this one.
What?
We're not speaking on this one. We're just testing the computer. Sorry.
I know, but we have to continue with this.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. We'll lower our hand.
No. Why
What
would
do
you?
you, because they're not on yours yet.
Listen,
We'll come back to yours, Mike.
huh?
They'll come back to you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so is there anyone else with the hearing up?
Yes, we have James Ligakos.
James, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is James Ligakis, 32 Winthrop Avenue.
Okay. What would you like to
And I have been, I had wrote a letter and I don't know if you have it in front of you, all the agents, but I had given it to Chuck. I'm going to have my sister-in-law speak for me because this is, I get a little shaky. So she's a lot better at speaking than I would like to read you one of the letters that we have concerns.
Okay, if she could give her name and address, that would be helpful.
Sure. Okay, hello. My name's Sandra Dias. I live at 27 Roosevelt Ave in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And I'm just here to help out.
Go ahead.
Okay, first, I guess, do you want to start with some questions?
No, just.
No, all right. Okay, well, I guess what
Our
I'll do is
concerns.
read the letter that Jim wrote. Because you may not have all had an opportunity to read it yourselves. Is that true, or have you read the letter? Can you hear us?
We can hear you. The board has received your letter, correct?
Okay, well, I'll just read it for the record.
That's fine.
To the Conservation Commission, we're writing to address concerns about construction at 31 Winthrop Ave in Gloucester. As longtime neighboring homeowners, we believe the proposed construction on the property presents numerous environmental issues. Firstly, we are deeply concerned about the use of herbicides on the clam flat of Red Pier Creek. For many years, we have harvested clams using our right-of-way, and I am just speaking for Jim Ligakos, frequently shared the harvest with the owner's parents. We request the Conservation Commission enforce the homeowner's boundary line in removing vegetation and administering herbicide. We would like to request a survey of the boundary line to be certain of its position. We are also concerned about the seepage of potentially harmful herbicides to the marsh and clam flat and its impact on shorebirds and shellfish in the area. In addition, we ask that the homeowner reconsider plans for removal of the eastern white pines on the property, particularly the mature white pine with the widest branch spread. Eastern white pines play a critical conservation role. They serve as habitat and food for many species, including red and gray squirrels, deer, and multiple bird species. We regularly see bald eagles in the pines, crows, chickadees, cardinals, red-tailed hawks, hummingbirds, and many more in and around the pines. The eastern white pine plays a crucial role in helping to combat climate change by storing carbon dioxide, a major greenhouse gas, in its trunk. Gas released from the trunk creates particles that promote cloud formation and rainfall, reflect sunlight, and cool the region. The eastern white pine also creates a windbreak, blocking the wind to reduce energy costs such as heating a house in winter. The white pines also help to control drifting and blowing of snow and provide a living screen to provide greater privacy, both for the homeowner and for neighbors. We respectfully request the Conservation Commission address these issues of environmental concern.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yes. So I guess we did have specific questions about the type of herbicide that's proposed to be used on the Greenbrier.
Greenbrier, yeah. You know, I have.
What is the chemicals that you're using?
So this is the way this works. So you tell us what your concerns or questions are, and then we go back to the professional to talk to them. So just,
Sure, okay. All right,
This-
we'd like to know the type of herbicide
you go.
that's being proposed.
See if there's another way of.
And if there are other options other than the use of herbicides, such as like backhoeing the vegetation. I mean, I think there is great concern in the sense that there are a lot of shorebirds in that area every day, and they feed on the marine life that lives there in the marsh. And the use of herbicides on such a steep grade, you know, going into the marsh really is concerning for both human consumption as well as animal consumption. The other things that we were wondering about was, let's see, sorry. So primarily, is there any blasting that's going to be done? There's a lot of
We have a well.
granite.
We have a well here.
We
on
have a
31.
well,
We're
or
very
Jim has a
close
well.
this
So
property.
we're, you know, the proximity of this house to the neighbor's house is quite close. And
500 feet.
if there's going to be any blasting, we wanted to have a sense of the duration of the construction, how long it would take. And how is it that the firm determined the trees have reached the end of their lifespan? I mean, eastern white pines have a lifespan that can
Over
up to
200.
200 and potentially even 400 years. Like, how has he determined that all of those large
12 of
eastern white pines, 12 of them have reached the end of their lifespan? I think those were the major questions.
one
And then
more.
Jim has one more, yeah.
Down in the marsh, all the neighbors up here on the hill, we all have access to that marsh from a, as you can see on the plan that was submitted by Bob Griffin. It's called River View Court. We all have access to the water, and we just didn't want to lose that access by again, not having that surveyed properly, and the you know, the homeowner thought that they might have control of our right of way. So we were concerned about our right of way.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Chuck, do we have anyone else?
We do not have any other hands up at this time.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Next part is roll call commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about taking down 12 trees, and I would also like to know a little bit more about the decision to do that, the size of the trees that will be replacing the 12, and I thought we had 2-to-1 mitigation on trees.
Member Cook.
Yeah, the trees, I have the same issue. One is, it's associated with the tree removal. I'm looking at one of the pictures right now. and they're extremely mature trees. So I'd like to see the report from the arborist that made that determination and what methods they used included as part of the record. The second part associated with it, if it is deemed that those trees have to come out, especially like 1 through 6, I believe, that runs down by the retaining walls. As I said, there's issues with the retaining walls and you're going to be replacing them. We don't like to see the trunks, the stumps removed. We like, especially on a hillside, because we want to keep it stable. So I'm concerned about taking the trees out, making sure that we leave the stumps in, and then how are we going to get new trees in there that will grow? That's my questions.
Member Gradwell.
In concert, in concert with Bill Cook and Linda Charpentier.
Member Sargent.
Rather than applying herbicide on a steep slope in close proximity to economically important shellfish beds and salt marsh, all mitigation would be better situated if we're confined within the area of landscape plan. I also would like a 2-to-1 mitigation for the 12 trees that are proposed to be removed in order to minimize impacts to wildlife habitat. I also didn't see any calculations for the increase in impervious surfaces. Because the site is served by an on-site wastewater system, the Board of Health must sign off on the building permit to ensure that increased flow wouldn't be proposed. Additionally, because of the large scope of construction that's proposed on the small lot, there's a possibility that soils might be compacted and septic components could be damaged. Therefore, I would like a condition that after construction is complete, the Board of Health will inspect the system and verify its functionality prior to a certificate of compliance being issued. And all dewatering must be adequately treated before being discharged. Thank you.
Member Materi. You are muted.
Sorry, thank you. I echo the concern about the trees. I think if we're going 2-to-1, we need 12 more. I'd especially like to see trees planted along the eastern side of the exposed ledge where several of the trees are slated to be removed, but there's no replacement trees that are supposed to be put there. So I'd like to see some additional trees put there, especially if some new white pines can be planted. I think that would be suitable. I think I'd like to see if we can reach out to the Shellfish Constable to see if there's any concern about the herbicides being used. I also have a concern about the herbicides and echoing Commissioner Sargent about them being used on a steep slope above the salt marsh and whether they affect the growth of the salt marsh itself, salt marsh productivity. In terms of mitigation, by my calculations, going through the factors in 310 CMR and 1058.5, I see 1,675 square feet of mitigation that would be at 2-to-1 that would be required, not counting any restoration or anything like that. So I guess the applicant that burdens on the applicant to show that too, so they could break it down by each of the different criteria in 10.585 and resubmit the plan for that. I'd like to see that.
Member Villa.
Nothing further to add.
Member Jackson.
Yes, I echo the concerns about the trees. There should be 2-to-1 mitigation there. And I noticed that among your trees that you were replacing in the proposed 12, 2 were serviceberry, and I didn't think they grew big enough to be considered trees, but we need to hear about that. Are the cantilevered sections of the new dwelling pervious or impervious? Were there any comments from DMF? And I would also like to hear from Shellfish. And finally, I would like measurements for each of the standards 1058.5A through H with whether or not they're met, or the square footage requiring restoration or mitigation, the square footage of restoration or mitigation proposed, and what areas on the plan comply or correspond with each area of mitigation or restoration.
Okay. Mr. Griffin, obviously you got a fair amount of work to do here, so we're probably gonna have to continue, but if you want to give us a broad overview right now, what was just reported, you may do so if you are so inclined.
Sure. So let me go back. So we had suggested that herbicide was appropriate for the greenbrier eradication because it works, and it would be applied by a mass licensed or applicator. And I think it would do a good job of getting rid of the greenbrier, which is otherwise difficult to get rid of. I said, that I understand this is a sensitive topic. And if we want to try manual removal instead, we can do it. It's obviously not as reliable, but it is an alternative. And I don't think that the applicants want to get into a fight over herbicide or no herbicide. So I think we can change that pretty easily. As far as the trees go, I thought we had a 2-to-1 mitigation requirement applicable to the shrubs. I didn't think we had to do 2-to-1 for trees, so I'm sorry about that, but we can certainly add some more trees, and we'll look at that eastern side as was suggested. I think serviceberry is a tree, but I'll ask Matt Ulrich, the landscape architect, about that as well. As far as blasting goes, we're not anticipating any blasting. We're going to do a little bit of filling to raise the grade for the driveway. We already have utilities into the site, so I don't know that I don't think we're going to have to do any blasting. Of course, you never know what you're going to find. We're working within the same footprint for the foundation. We want to pin the foundation to ledge, so I think it's unlikely that we'll be into a blasting situation, but I can't say 100% that would never ever happen. Regarding the Chicoria tree letter, it's in, I think it was provided to the commission, but I'll get some more details from them about the white pines. They did note that several of them were dead or dying, and that some of them are endangering the structures that are there. So, it may be possible to save 1 or 2, but we'll look into that. We were asked about the access to Riverview Court. We're not proposing any construction down there. We did survey the property. We didn't set any new monuments along the Riverview Court line. We could do that, but the applicants aren't proposing to do anything to change access to the property or the river or anything like that. As far as the stumps go, I think we can we can leave the stumps in place except where it's right next to the structures. And it might impede the proper, installation of a new foundation. Happy to provide more detail on the riverfront A through H and the impervious surfaces. As far as the Board of Health is concerned, I understand the applicant has the applicant's architect has spoken to the Board of Health about this plan. And so far there are no concerns, but we'll just let the Board of Health do what they do, and happy to have more discussions with them. There have been no comments received yet from DMF, and I think that's about it. Do you have any other suggestions for me?
Well, this is Bill Cook again. Just going back to the trees, I just questioned because I'm comparing some of your pictures to your descriptions, and it seems like the majority of the trees that you want to take out, you say, are white pine. Yet looking at the photographs, they appear to be oak, multiple oaks and stuff like that going down. They don't appear to be pine trees. So I think we need to get that clarified too.
Well, okay, so Mr. Chicoria's letter says we're proposing to remove 8 trees, 8 of which are white pines, many of them nearing the end of their life. A few smaller ones are pushing over a stone wall. There are also a few oak trees with lots of deadwood and decay. So anyways, that's what he said, but I'll certainly ask him for more information. And perhaps if we, I don't know, if we could flag the trees or something like that so that you could, see for yourself which ones are being removed and what species they are.
Yeah, like I said, the pictures don't seem to match up with the description of why the trees are being removed.
Okay. Do you guys typically have sidewalks?
I was just gonna say, yes, this might be one of those, I would definitely enjoy a sidewalk on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I could do that.
So you can work that with the agent some days.
Okay. Happy to do that.
All right. Anything else, commissioners? Chuck, anything to add, or we're gonna continue, obviously? Anything else? Anybody?
Yeah, I guess, just not to harp on the trees, but, dead trees do provide a lot of valuable habitat for wildlife, owls, cavity nesters, woodpeckers, as well as, perches for other birds that might be foraging on the river there. It seems like there's a lot of those trees that are quite a distance from the structures that even if they fell, they wouldn't be jeopardizing those structures. So I think relooking at some of those trees and leaving some of those, larger structures there could be beneficial to wildlife.
We'll certainly give that some consideration. I do think that safety is paramount here, and we want a site that's not going to be threatening to the applicant or their guests or anything like that.
Agreed. Okay, so is 2 weeks enough time for you, Mr. Griffin, or do you want to wait another cycle? What do you want?
I'd like to be on this on the calendar for the first if possible, and obviously I know that we'll have to move quickly, particularly given the need for a site walk and making any revisions that come from that. But I'd like to try for the first, yes.
Okay, if not, you can just call.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282988, 31 Winthrop Avenue to the Conservation Commission meeting of May 1st, 2024.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Gullah,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you all very much, and good night.
Okay. What do we want to jump back to?
Disparity.
Okay. Can we get
All right.
I don't even see him. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yeah, just promoted.
Hello.
Mark, you have to unmute.
Yeah. He is unmuting and then
Over
he's.
here. All right, you're unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow, thank God. Okay, so this is a project at the Building Center. This project was in front of the commission. Some of you people were members then in 2018. And it contained two separate projects. One was the foundations to be put in and improved underneath some of the bins which are covered with roofs and the materials are kept dry. And the other was to repair a series of the seawall that runs along the water between these same buildings. And because of the COVID and all of that stuff, we didn't finish the second phase. In addition to that, the building had some issues with some deteriorated buildings on the other side of the property that needed to be dealt with over time. To make this short, is that it's the same project as was previously authorized by you people. There, I've included a copy of the original determination, the negative determination that's in the package that was given to you. And it is exactly what was in that project. The only possible change, and we would not know about it for sure until we removed the concrete section, pull it back, which will fully expose the ancient seawall that runs along the stretch, which is about 45 feet long. And that area, once they are uncovered, because they're partially exposed now, all will be repinned so that they will, there are a couple of spaces where the pins are corroded, and so they will be all repinned, and then we would proceed with the rest of the project, which would be adding some concrete blocks and pours, and then have a small wall along that edge. So the project, if you look at the determination that was made originally, and the language is the same. It's in paragraph 3 of the original determination of applicability, which has been provided to you. And it's negative determination section 3. And it says the work described is within a buffer zone as defined, but will not alter the area subject to protection under the Act. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent, subject to the following conditions. 1, clean fill or stone to be used for all filling operations on the site, which we will obviously adhere to, and diligent efforts to be taken to prevent fill from flowing into the harbor area, which is another thing that we will be doing. So we're asking for the determination of applicability. It's a negative determination, and we'd like to get started as soon as possible. The reason why we're here is that the time lapsed on the original permit during the COVID circumstances and the ones that followed. And so this was determined to be not subsequently approved. So we're asking for the same approvals on this small section of the project.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, we'll go through public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at One Harbor Loop may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 6 attendees and there are no hands up.
Hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Next up would be Commissioner roll call comment.
Member Charpentier.
I voted in favor of this project, thought it was long done, has my support.
Member Cook.
No problem.
Member Gradwell.
No problem. He's still got the buffer that we put in that number of years ago.
Member Sargent.
No comment.
Member Viteri.
No comments.
Member Gullah. Member Gullah.
No comment.
Member Jackson.
No comment. Okay, then. Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for RDA 1804 at One Harbor Loop.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes?
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
Member Gullah.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes. Commissioner Jackson moves for a negative determination for RDA 1804 at One Harbor Loop with the conditions carrying over from the 2019 application. And if further work is needed or a greater extent of work is needed, that a conversation with the agent will be in order.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes?
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
Member Gullah,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Fahey, you're all set.
I'd just like to tell you, I heard your entire meeting today, and when it came time, my turn, and I hit what I thought was the right button, it wasn't. I apologize to you people, and I'll promise not to do any more work that requires this type of presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yes.
Night, Mike.
Okay, go back to Beachland Ave. Did anyone show up for that?
I do not see Mr. Harris there. If there's anybody here for 12 Beachland Ave, please raise your hand.
I guess we can go with they're not showing.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to continue RDA 1802 at 12 Beachland Avenue to the Conservation Commission meeting of May 1st, 2024.
Ms. Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Gullah,
Yeah.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. Last up is we have some,
The certificate of compliance.
yes, the certificate of compliance are COC 20-955 $83 Dollar Neck Drive. I guess Trevor Lucas is he here?
So this is to close out the original NOI for the seawall that was approved. So basically we would close this out with an invalid order of conditions. That way they can close out the old order before they put the new one on the deed.
We can move to approve it.
Sure. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve the request for certificate of compliance 0282955 at 83 Dollar Neck Drive.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Gullah,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, so last up is violation. Where do we stand with these?
So 14 Fort Hill, they plan to submit something prior to the May 1st meeting. I have not heard anything from 227 Atlantic, but we do have some folks here for 137 Wingersheet Beach. So we got Meredith Fine and Richard Nyland are here.
Okay, you want to promote them?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Nyland.
So, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I don't think we had an action item for this evening. However, you may recall, Chip Nyland, Lynch D. Simona Nyland, representing the owners of 137 Wingersheek. And an enforcement order was issued some time ago, a month or so ago. We answered in writing, and then at the last meeting we made a presentation with respect to issues that have been raised for motorized vehicles. We presented information that others are using motorized vehicles or recreational vehicles on the beaches, and it's not against the law. We also presented evidence that this desire to have a 3-foot wide path is not something that's regulated. It's a policy or a practice. And then just made a presentation to show other activities around the Good Harbor and Wingersheek and Coffins Beach. So, and I think, Mr. Chairman, you said, well, let's come back in a couple of weeks. Let's think about it. You know, we have offered, we'd like to stay on the right side here, but we don't want to be, penalized for what's taken place out there. We didn't create that path. We didn't excavate it, and it allows wind and rain to move the sand. So we'd like to use a path. We have offered to add plantings and to have, you know, a seasonal way to get get down to the beach using recreational vehicles. So that's, I think we're here tonight because you asked us to come back. I saw it was on the agenda when I looked on, and I'm not sure what the next step is, but you know, we're hoping we could resolve this matter with the commission.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, commissioner comments. I mean, there's nobody here in the public. No, there is actually. If they have any comments, they can bring some in. But so I'll bounce it back to you, Chuck. At this point, I don't know if we need a couple more weeks to sit on this. I mean, another cycle. I haven't had a lot of time to dig deep into this, to be brutally honest. But I don't know what your feelings are at this point, Chuck, or any of the commissioners for that matter. If anyone wants to comment on this. At this point, I don't know what else to do other than either continue the violation or come to some agreement that the work and plantings, or why don't we do this? And maybe the board will agree with me or not. I think you've come up, I didn't see it in this cycle, but maybe you did it already, Mr. Nyland. But you said some things you are willing to do, plantings, this, that, and the other thing. If you could put a package together for the commission, if you haven't already, that you're proposing, and if you've done it already, my apologies, I haven't had time to review it. But I don't know if that's a way to go, commissioners, or feel free to ask them any questions you want, but I don't know where anyone goes with this at this point in time.
My opinion is, first off, the prior order of conditions stipulated a swimming pool, plantings, a 3-foot pathway, and no motorized vehicles. You got your swimming pool, and we have some of the plantings. You chose to ignore the rest of it. My feeling right now is they need to submit an NOI to request permission to build it, because Mother Nature took it all out. So I think they need an NOI that's going to have to go to National Heritage, explaining what you're going to do, how you're going to do it.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else? Comments?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Linda.
We do roll call, commissioners?
Yeah.
Member Charpentier?
No comments at this time.
Anything additional, Mr. Cook?
No.
Member Gredwell?
No additional comment.
Member Sargent?
I'll stick by the enforcement order.
Member Terry?
I'm with Commissioner Cook. I mean, if they have work they want to do, it's going to need to be an NOI. Otherwise, the other option is restoring, you know, the dune back to what? But they're restoring the dune back to some historic time period that was before they owned it. Taking the path out entirely of the dune. I really don't know. So I think an NOI, if they want to maintain some use here, it would be in order.
Member Gullo?
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. If the applicant's willing to do it, just file for an NOI, list the things you're going to do to repair, fix, or whatever, and then we can close that out. And I think at a minimum, that doesn't make everybody happy, but I think it solves a lot of problems. If you're willing to do that.
Member Jackson?
Yeah, I thought somewhere along the way, our DEP rep or liaison suggested that an enforcement order was more powerful than an NOI. That's one. Two, I'm standing firm on the 3-foot path recommended by CZM, I think. And third, I was just looking up beach regulations for Gloucester, and it's very clear that on Good Harbor and Wingershik, vehicles except city vehicles engaged in beach maintenance, including off-road vehicles, motorbikes, mopeds, motorcycles, trucks, dune buggies, and snowmobiles are prohibited on beaches or dunes of Good Harbor and Wingershik beaches without authorization. Doesn't say anything about time of year. These were effective April 28, 2022. So I'm sticking by that.
Okay, Mr. Nyland, any comments?
No, so to answer your question, I hadn't submitted anything in advance, so no, you weren't missing anything. And so, you know, my client's out of state. I told him I would attend tonight, get the flavor of the board, which I have received, and, you know, we'll make a decision in terms of how we're going to proceed. I've resolved enforcement orders in other communities through the enforcement mechanism without filing a notice of intent. I hear what the commission is saying, and so we'll act accordingly, and you don't need to put us on the agenda any longer. We'll either come in with an NOI or file an appeal or take whatever actions necessary. So, but I do thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, sir. All right. We don't need to vote or close, so you will
Well,
wait.
Do we need some, you know, some kind of timeline for when we would like some kind of resolution with things? I mean, we don't want to just leave it hanging, I don't think.
I don't think we should just take it off the agenda. I mean,
Absolutely not, yeah.
what did the enforcement order provide for in terms of what they're supposed to submit or remedy or anything like that?
There's a requirement for me to file a plan by April 1st of 2024, according to the enforcement order. I didn't mean to interrupt, Chuck.
Yep, no, I think
Was that done?
you mentioned that you were engaging with Mary Rimmer to be working on a plan to restore the dune. There's supposed to be a restoration plan, professionally surveyed site plan, you know, proposed restored site conditions, narrative describing the restoration of each wetland resource area, the schedule of the restoration, implementation.
And we don't have any of that?
Well, no,
Okay.
I came into the meeting, Mr. Viteri, instead to walk through and to discuss what our position was rather than filing. So,
Well, there's still a valid enforcement order. Is that right?
yeah, I have not said it's not a valid enforcement order. There's a valid enforcement order.
Okay, so I don't think we should do anything until we get all of the items that the existing enforcement order requires. And then we should decide on how we want to act.
Well, I think that I came to 2 meetings. We had discussions. After the last discussion, we suggested we come back to see whether or not this can be resolved other than through the enforcement order. So I think it's very clear. That's why I said a couple of minutes ago, it's very clear what the commission's position is, and we'll address that.
Can you come back in 2 weeks with what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, I'll instead of waiting 2.5 hours for this, I'll communicate to the commission absolutely what we're going to do.
Within 2 weeks.
I think I can do that within 2 weeks. I believe my client will be back by then, yes.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay. Anything else, Chuck?
I believe we've gotten everything.
You're gonna get a little note from Joel. He says we circumvented his rights by not letting him speak, so.
Yeah, his hand was not up before the public comment was over, so he wrote one to me and to the city legal staff as well, so.
His hand's gonna be calling.
Yeah.
All right, anything else, everybody? Thank you very much. That was a big meeting. We got through it pretty quickly, so that was good.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. We have a second.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
No.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Materi,
Yes.
Member Bella, and Member Jackson.
Yes.
All right,
Good night.
Good
Good
job.
night, all.
Take care.
Yeah, Chuck, can you hold on for just a minute afterwards?
Well, this is all still being recorded and there's still people here, so,
Yeah. See them.
Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow then.
yeah, or you can call me. Call me on my cell phone.
Okay.
All right. Bye.